We took a deep dive into the numbers and compared the Honda Pilot to 3 key competitors in our previous video, even breaking down the fuel economy differences between them in terms of dollars and cents. This time around it's the road test, trail test, suspension test, safety systems test, but not those safety systems, and a look at one of the all-new Honda Pilot's secret weapons, which only comes out after dark. I'm Justin Pritchard, this is the new Honda Pilot Trail Sport. Let's meet the machine. Let's start inside. Well, my tester's cabin made a punchy first impression thanks to soft segments of leather and padded materials on the seat, doors, and console to give it a welcoming and inviting look. There are several high-value elements like the sporty metal-trimmed steering wheel, high-end looking digital instruments, and push-button shifter console engaging the eyes from a glance. Controls are clustered logically and kept low on the dash and console. This minimizes button clutter in the driver's forward view, and I love the simple 3-button climate control system, with push-button functions that'll be easy to use with your gloves on if you have to. No touch screen required. And speaking of touch screens, while this one is bright and tidy, it isn't the big screen option for your dollar, nor is the factory Honda interface the most engaging to look at or use. Thankfully, wireless Android Auto worked like a charm all week long after just 15 seconds setting it up one time. And my tunes sound great on that Bose stereo, by the way. Now let me get you up close and personal with this interior a little. Heated steering wheel button right here where it belongs. Backup camera here, a little look at the graphics there for you. A couple of different camera modes that we can call up here as well. Cup holder game is on point. We've even got room for one of these guys. Nice and snug just like that. Extra storage in here. Extra storage down on the door. So on the doors we've even got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 storage compartments built in. Power port, that's both type of USBs there, which you'll appreciate. We've got a 12 volt here. No power ports in the center console though. Wireless charging pad for your smartphone right here, of course. And that is wireless Android Auto in this case. No cord required. More power ports back here. We've got 2 USBs and a household outlet there. Clever pouches here on the seat backs, and we've even got this little separate pouch there for your smartphone as well on both seats. And another power outlet right back here. The overall drive of the Pilot Trail Sport left a positive impression, though some areas are a mixed bag, and you may need a little bit of time and effort before the smoothest drive presents itself. Separating the Trail Sport from more pavement-oriented Pilot versions are a set of all-terrain tires, and trust me, that's one less thing to worry about when you're wheeling around in the bush, having popped, slashed, or otherwise destroyed a half-dozen or more regular SUV tires on the crumbling side roads and trails around Sudbury, Ontario. I'm a big fan of hitting the dirt wearing some more appropriate footwear, which we seem to have here. Another nice touch is the colored but non-painted lower bumper edge that can stand up to some foliage without you wincing about the paint. This all sits a little higher from the road or trail than the standard Pilot thanks to a 1-inch factory lift, complete with new anti-roll bars and an application-specific suspension tune that's been recalibrated for improved off-road ride quality. Mission accomplished in that department, and more on that in a moment. Finally, beneath it all, it's a set of steel skid plates to protect the sensitive stuff just in case. These touches make for more confident and less stressful driving on the trails or lumpy roads, which is where you're seeing the Pilot Trail Sport's best work. When you get into its rhythm and use the correct drive mode for the situation, it's easy to sit back and relax as the machine does the work, and the suspension does a fine job of comfortably absorbing the bumps and dips, with plenty of carefully controlled suspension travel and minimal disturbance to those on board. On rough back roads, gravel roads, and camp roads, this means a more relaxed and easygoing drive, because the ride stands up to the abuse and the Pilot Trail Sport feels tough and durable, and stays relatively smooth and quiet. On slower trails and more uneven terrain, there's a sense of sitting comfortably on top of the action, while the engineering of the suspension and driveline beneath take care of the more difficult stuff. Many off-road situations that can be stressful in standard SUV models become, well, no problem at all. And in case you're cross-shopping, I will say I found the Pilot Trail Sport to be quieter and smoother, both on-road and off, and in more situations, than the Nissan Pathfinder Rock Creek. Of course, there are some compromises compared to a regular Honda Pilot. The Trail Sport is heavier on fuel and entry and exit is a bit taller, so keep that in mind for smaller or mobility-challenged passengers in your life. And also if you've got a canine jumping up into the back. Expect a little more road noise from the all-terrain tires on paved surfaces, though honestly, I was expecting a much louder highway drive given the look of these tires. The cabin does remain nicely muted even at highway speeds, though it is far from the quietest highway drive for the dollar.
Be careful though, at times I found the comfortable off-road ride encouraged me to drive a little too quickly for certain rougher surfaces off-road, in which case, well, you will be hearing from the suspension and skid plates beneath. Remember, this is a capable SUV, not an off-road truck, and you do have to keep your speed very reasonable.
So the point is, the suspension does a nice job of taking a beating in relative peace and quiet, but there is a definite limit when it comes to how quickly you can drive. The engine and braking were a mixed bag too. Power for passing and merging is adequate, not generous, and while the engine spends most of its time spinning away smoothly and hardly making a peep, I did find the auto-stop system and transmission to feel a little clumsy at times, and that a little patience on the throttle was required for smooth starts out of green lights. Similarly, the brakes needed a little bit of a learning curve before smooth operation became second nature. While stopping performance is adequate, the feel of the pedal in hard braking is fairly vague, and at times in traffic I found brake pedal response to be a little inconsistent too. These are fairly minor gripes, I just found the ride so nicely tuned for my Northern Ontario surroundings that I think it left me wishing for just a little more of that precision to the responses from the powertrain and brakes. No complaints from the safety systems though. I've been consistently impressed with the performance of Honda's latest driver assist features, over thousands of kilometers of highway testing during the past year or two, and this one's no exception. It's a fairly consistent experience from model to model. You've got the engaging on-screen infographics to keep up on which systems are engaged, what they're seeing, and what they're doing. The adaptive cruise is smooth and reliable, consistent with its adjustments to your speed, and demonstrates a solid sense of forward-looking and pre-calculation of all of its moves. All of that to say, it virtually never does anything abruptly, which makes it easier to trust more quickly and use more often. The lane-keeping system is similarly impressive. It likes to steer smoothly, carefully, and in one smooth motion as it navigates corners. That's a more relaxing drive, free of squirming and lurching as the steering smooths out your inputs, and keeps you magnetized to the center of your lane. I especially appreciate this function when driving into glaring bright sun on a wet road, where the pilot's camera systems can see the road lines better than I can.
So let's see how this all looks after dark and check out one of the Pilot Trail Sport's other valuable assets, its headlights.
When driving in the evening, I appreciated one particular element of the Pilot's nighttime cabin design right off the bat. That's unwanted light being kept to a minimum. The central touchscreen is on the smaller side, remember, and that's less light reaching your eyes if you're using it at night. And though I found the instrument cluster looks a bit minimal by day, after dark I appreciate that it's easier to read that way. Where there is light showing, including around the illuminated USB ports, which is a nice touch, that light tends to be sharp and only as powerful as it needs to be. So there's good control over after-dark light sources in the cabin, and that makes nighttime driving more relaxing for your eyeballs. The headlights work to similar effect. As you watch this hyperlapse footage, remember that the camera I'm using to film it doesn't see in the dark as well as you or I, so while you can take this as a representation, in real life, from the driver's seat, you'll be seeing a lot more detail further up the road in the dark than my little camera can show you here. In the back roads, you can see the illumination stretching well into tree lines and culverts, where it can reveal reflective animal retinas or shiny fur moving off to the roadside for early warning. Thankfully, I didn't meet any surprise friends this evening. On the highway, and especially with the high beams activated, there is excellent engagement of lines and reflective surfaces far away, and from the driver's seat, that can be some extra warning if something shouldn't be there. With the low beams engaged, you will notice some striping on the road ahead of the car, including a dark spot, so my main wish for this lighting system was just a little more consistent illumination in my immediate foreground. But with those high beams on an empty northern highway, I think you'll really appreciate how far this system can throw its white light, giving you a virtually panoramic view of the nighttime highway that's easier on your eyes. And I can confirm after 7 hours of highway driving in the dark, this is one of the best lighting systems I've enjoyed all year. So even if you're not keen on nighttime driving, these headlights might see you finding new reasons to go out for an evening spin.